There are secrets buried so deep that uncovering them destroys everything. There are confessions so dark that reading them changes you forever. On Reddit, in forums where anonymity strips away all pretense, people confess the truths that haunt their every waking moment. These are not ghost stories. These are not fiction. These are real people, carrying real burdens, sharing the darkness they can no longer contain. What you're about to hear will disturb you. It will make you question the people you trust. It will make you wonder about the secrets hiding in your own family, your own neighborhood, behind the smiles of people you see every single day. Before we descend into these haunting revelations, I need you to do something. If you're drawn to the dark mysteries of human psychology, if you want to understand the secrets people carry, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. These stories aren't easy to find, and they're even harder to forget. And if you're brave enough to make it through this entire journey, leave a like to let me know you survived. Now let's begin. The first confession comes from a user who inherited more than just property when his grandmother passed away. Marcus had always known his grandmother as a devoutly religious woman, the kind who attended church 3 times a week and kept a Bible on every surface in her home. She lived alone in a Victorian house on the outskirts of a small New England town, a house that had been in the family for generations. When she died at 93, Marcus was surprised to learn she had left everything to him. He arrived at the house on a cold October morning. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of old books and lavender sachets his grandmother had placed in every room. Dust particles danced in the pale sunlight, filtering through lace curtains. Every surface was exactly as she had left it. Her reading glasses on the side table, her knitting needles still holding half-finished work, a cup of tea long since evaporated, leaving a brown ring at the bottom. Marcus spent the first week just walking through the rooms, remembering. He had visited this house countless times as a child. He remembered his grandmother baking cookies in the kitchen, remembered sitting on her lap while she read him Bible stories, remembered the way she would hum hymns while tending her garden. Those memories felt sacred, untouchable. The cleaning began in the second week. Box after box of belongings, clothing that smelled of mothballs, photograph albums showing faces from another era, letters tied with ribbon, correspondence from relatives long dead. Each item was a piece of history, a fragment of a life lived almost a century long. Marcus found himself reading the letters late into the night, learning about his grandmother's youth, her marriage, her struggles during the war years. Then, 3 weeks into the process, he found something that didn't fit. He was working in what he had always thought was a shallow coat closet on the first floor. As he removed the last of the winter coats, he noticed the back wall seemed farther away than the closet should allow. He knocked on the wall, hollow. Behind an old bookshelf that he had assumed was built into the structure, he found a door. It was heavy oak, old, but well maintained. A modern padlock secured it, out of place among the antique fixtures throughout the house. The lock looked new, maybe 5 years old at most. Marcus stood there for a long time, staring at that door, his heart beginning to race with an inexplicable dread. He searched the house for a key. 2 days of looking through every drawer, every box, every possible hiding place. He finally found it taped to the underside of her nightstand drawer in the bedroom. Just a small silver key, but his hands trembled as he held it. Part of Marcus wanted to call someone, his brother, his mother, anyone to witness whatever was behind that door. But curiosity is a powerful force, and the house was his now. Whatever secrets it held were his responsibility. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door opened with a creak that seemed to echo through the entire house. Beyond was darkness and a staircase leading down. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and descended. The basement was larger than he expected, stretching beneath what must have been half the house. The air was different down here, thick and stagnant, untouched by circulation for years, maybe decades. The stone walls wept with condensation. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing shapes that slowly came into focus. Shelves, floor-to-ceiling shelving units lined every wall. And on those shelves, organized with meticulous precision, were jars, glass jars of various sizes, each filled with a clear preservative liquid. Hundreds of them. Marcus approached slowly, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor. As he got closer, his stomach began to turn. Inside the jars were organic specimens, small ones, perfectly preserved. His medical training, he was a paramedic, allowed him to recognize what he was looking at, even as his mind screamed in denial. Fetuses, human fetuses at various stages of development, some barely formed, others nearly full term. Each jar was labeled with a date and a number. The dates ranged from 1946 to 1962. The numbers went up to 173. Marcus backed away, his flashlight falling from his hands and rolling across the floor. In its spinning beam, he caught sight of something else. A desk in the corner, neat and organized. On it sat a leather-bound journal, a pen laying across the closed cover, as if waiting for another entry that would never come. He forced himself to pick up the flashlight, forced himself to approach the desk, forced himself to open the journal. What he read there, in his grandmother's careful handwriting, made the horrible truth crystallize. His grandmother had been a nurse. This much he knew. What he hadn't known was where she had worked in the years before and after World War II. The journal detailed her employment at a clinic, an unlicensed facility that operated in secret. Women came in the night, desperate women who couldn't afford another child, who had been abandoned, who faced social ruin if their pregnancies became known. The procedures were described in clinical detail. Kitchen table operations, no anesthesia beyond whiskey, instruments sterilized in boiling water, success rates, complication rates, deaths. The journal recorded it all with the detachment of a medical log. But then the entries changed. His grandmother began to question what they were doing. She began to see the procedures differently. Religious conviction crept into the writing. References to souls, to sin, to the innocent. And then came her decision. She couldn't destroy them, she wrote. These babies who never drew breath, never opened their eyes, never had a chance at life. She couldn't let them be discarded like medical waste. So she began to preserve them, to keep them, to create what she called a memorial to the innocent. The journal detailed her method of preservation, the chemicals she used, the care she took with each specimen. She gave them numbers because she didn't have names. She prayed over each jar. She asked God's forgiveness daily. The final entry, dated just 3 months before her death, was the most haunting. In shaky handwriting, clearly written when she was already very ill. She wrote this: "I have carried these souls with me for 60 years. I have prayed over them every single day. I have asked for forgiveness that I know I do not deserve. When I die, I hope God will show them more mercy than I showed them in life. I could not save them then. I could not destroy them after. So I have kept them, my penance, my burden, my eternal shame. May whoever finds them understand that I did the only thing my conscience would allow. I could not bear to destroy them twice." Marcus sat in that basement for hours, surrounded by those jars, reading and rereading the journal. His grandmother, the woman who had baked him cookies and taught him to pray, had participated in over 100 abortions and then preserved the remains in her basement for 6 decades. He thought about calling the police. This was evidence of illegal medical procedures, of improper disposal of human remains. But what purpose would it serve? Everyone involved was long dead. The clinic had closed in 1963. Prosecuting a dead woman would accomplish nothing. He thought about telling his family. But how do you explain this? How do you reconcile the loving grandmother everyone remembered with the woman who kept a basement full of preserved fetuses? How do you burden others with knowledge that can never be unknown? In his Reddit post, Marcus wrote that he made a decision he still questions. He gave each jar a proper burial. He purchased a plot in a remote section of the cemetery where his grandmother was interred. Over the course of 3 weeks, working only at night, he buried every single jar. He spoke a prayer over each one, though he wasn't religious himself. He blessed them, acknowledged them, gave them the dignity his grandmother had tried to preserve for 60 years. Then he sealed the basement, had the door removed, and the wall rebuilt. He never told anyone in his family what he had found. He sold the house 6 months later, never mentioning the sealed room to the buyers. But the secret haunts him. He dreams about those jars. He wonders about the women who came to that clinic in desperation. He thinks about his grandmother, carrying this burden alone for 6 decades, unable to share it with anyone, not even her own family. He wonders if she found peace before she died, or if she went to her grave still drowning in guilt. The comment section of his post was divided. Some people praised him for giving those remains a dignified burial. Others were horrified that he hadn't reported everything to authorities. Some questioned whether his grandmother had truly been a villain or a woman trying to do right in an impossible situation. Others argued that her decision to preserve the remains was itself a violation, a macabre collection rather than a memorial. One comment that stayed with Marcus came from a woman who had undergone an illegal abortion in the 1950s. She wrote, "Your grandmother might have saved my life. I was 17 and pregnant by my father. No one would help me. Women like your grandmother were the only option. I'm 79 now, with children and grandchildren of my own. I exist because of women who risked everything to help the desperate. I don't know if what she did with the remains was right or wrong, but I know she helped people when no one else would." If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button now. We're just beginning this journey into the darkest confessions ever shared. Ring that notification bell so you never miss these explorations into human nature. And leave a like if you're ready to go deeper. The second story takes us into a marriage that was built on lies from the very first moment. Sarah had been married to David for 15 years. They had 3 children together, a house in the suburbs, a minivan, soccer practice on Saturdays, parent-teacher conferences, family dinners. Everything looked perfect from the outside, and Sarah had genuinely believed it was. David worked in IT security, a job that required long hours and occasional travel. He was devoted to their family, or so it seemed. He coached their son's little league team. He attended their daughter's dance recitals. He was patient, kind, attentive. Sarah considered herself lucky. Then came the day her laptop died. It was a Monday morning. She had a presentation due for work, and her computer wouldn't boot up. David had already left for a business trip to Seattle. She didn't think twice about using his laptop. They had always been open about these things. No secrets between them. That's what she believed. His password was their anniversary. She logged in and opened his file system, searching for the backup of her presentation she knew she had sent to his email months ago. That's when she accidentally clicked on a folder buried deep in his directory structure. It was labeled with a random string of numbers and letters: J7K9P2M5Q8. Inside were photographs, thousands of photographs. At first glance, Sarah thought maybe David had a photography hobby she didn't know about. But as she began to scroll through them, her blood ran cold. Every single photograph was of a woman, and not one of them was posed. These were candid shots taken in public places. Women walking down the street, women sitting in coffee shops, women at the gym, women on the subway, women shopping for groceries, women completely unaware they were being photographed. The organization was what made it truly disturbing. David had created folders within folders, categorizing the images with meticulous precision. Folders organized by location, by date, by physical characteristics, hair color, body type, approximate age, clothing style. Each system of organization revealed another layer of obsessive documentation. Sarah clicked deeper. Some folders contained images of the same woman taken over weeks or months. One folder showed a blonde woman in her 30s, documented across 47 photographs taken over a 3-month period. The metadata on the files showed they had been taken at various times of day, in different locations around the city. David had been following her, documenting her routines, her patterns, her life. Sarah's hands shook as she opened another folder. This one was labeled Targets. Inside were not just photographs, but notes. Detailed observations about women's schedules, where they worked, where they lived, what time they left home in the morning, what route they took to work, which gym they attended, what days they went grocery shopping. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just street photography. This was surveillance, stalking. David had been systematically tracking women, creating detailed profiles of their daily lives, building what looked like a database of potential victims. Then Sarah saw a folder that made her heart stop completely. It was labeled with her own name. Inside were photographs of her from before they met. Images taken at her old workplace, a marketing firm in downtown Chicago. Pictures of her at the grocery store she had frequented back then. Photos of her jogging in the park near her old apartment. The dates on the files showed they were taken 6 months before they were introduced at a mutual friend's party. David had been watching her, studying her, learning her patterns and habits. Their meeting hadn't been chance. Their entire relationship, their marriage, their family, everything was built on a foundation of deception and predation. Sarah sat frozen in front of the laptop for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Her mind raced through their entire relationship, seeing it now through this new, horrifying lens. Every sweet gesture recontextualized. Every thoughtful surprise now evidence of surveillance. He had known her favorite coffee shop before she told him because he had followed her there. He had known she jogged in the mornings because he had photographed her doing it. Their love story was a carefully constructed lie. She thought about calling the police immediately, but stopped herself. She needed to think clearly. What exactly would she report? Street photography was legal in most circumstances. Without evidence of direct threats or harassment, without victims coming forward, what crime had actually been committed? David had been careful, disturbingly careful. Sarah spent the next 3 days in a fog. David called from Seattle, their conversations painfully normal. How were the kids? How was her day? He loved her. He missed her. He'd be home Friday. She maintained the facade, saying all the right things while her mind screamed. She secretly consulted with a divorce attorney. She made copies of everything she found on his laptop, storing them in a secure cloud account he couldn't access. She researched surveillance laws, stalking statutes, trying to understand what legal recourse she might have. She quietly reached out to a domestic violence organization, not because David had been physically violent, but because they understood patterns of control and obsession. When David returned on Friday evening, Sarah was ready. The children were at her sister's house, told only that Mommy and Daddy needed to talk about grown-up things. Sarah sat across from her husband of 15 years, the father of her children, and told him she had found his files. His reaction was somehow worse than the discovery itself. He didn't panic. He didn't apologize. He didn't even seem particularly surprised. Instead, he calmly asked her which folder she had found first, as if the order of discovery mattered more than the discovery itself. Then he explained. He spoke in a measured, rational tone that made Sarah's skin crawl. It was just a hobby, he said, an interest in photography and human behavior. He found people fascinating, the way they moved through the world unaware of being observed. It was anthropological, he claimed, scientific even. He was documenting authentic human behavior. When Sarah brought up the notes, the schedules, the tracking of specific women over months, David dismissed her concerns. He was thorough, he explained. That's what made him good at his job in IT security. Attention to detail, pattern recognition. There was nothing sinister about it. And when she showed him the folder with her own name, when she confronted him with evidence that he had stalked her before they met, he smiled. Actually smiled. He told her that's how he knew she was special. He had observed many women, but she was different. He had taken the time to really understand her before introducing himself because he wanted to make sure they were compatible. It was romantic in his mind. He had chosen her carefully. He truly, genuinely didn't understand why she was upset. In his worldview, what he had done was no different than researching a car before buying it or reading reviews before choosing a restaurant. He had been careful and methodical. He had made an informed decision. She should be flattered. Sarah left that night with the children. She filed for divorce the following Monday. During the discovery phase of the divorce proceedings, more disturbing facts emerged. 2 other women had filed restraining orders against David years before he and Sarah met. Both cases had been settled quietly, with David agreeing to restrictions in exchange for the women not pursuing criminal charges. There was a pattern, the lawyer explained. David would become fixated on a woman, document her extensively, sometimes approach her, sometimes not. He walked right up to the legal line, but was careful never to cross it in ways that would lead to arrest. The restraining orders were public record, but Sarah had never thought to search for such things before marrying him. Why would she? He had seemed so normal. The divorce took 8 months. David fought for custody, claiming Sarah was having a mental health crisis, that she was paranoid and unstable. The evidence from his laptop helped her case significantly. The judge granted Sarah full custody, with David receiving supervised visitation only. In her Reddit post, written 2 years after the divorce was finalized, Sarah reflected on the experience. She wrote about the violation of having her entire relationship reframed. She described the feeling of having been a target rather than a partner, observed rather than loved. She talked about the therapy she and her children were still undergoing, processing the revelation that their father was not who they thought he was. The responses to her post were overwhelming. Dozens of women shared similar stories: hidden cameras in bedrooms, GPS trackers in cars, spyware on phones and computers. The thread became a catalog of surveillance and control, a testament to how many people live double lives, how many relationships are built on deception. One woman wrote about finding her husband's detailed logs of every conversation she had, every person she talked to, every place she went. He had been systematically isolating her from friends and family based on surveillance data he had collected over years. Another described discovering her boyfriend had been catfishing her online, creating fake personas to test her loyalty, manufacturing situations to see how she would respond. But the comment that haunted Sarah most came from a forensic psychologist who specialized in stalking cases. She wrote, "People like your ex-husband often escalate. The documentation, the organization, the complete lack of remorse, these are warning signs. He might have stayed within legal boundaries with you, but statistical data suggests that subjects like him progress to more invasive behaviors over time. You likely left before his surveillance turned into something worse. The women after you might not be so fortunate." Sarah ended her post with a warning to others. She wrote, "We trust the people we love. We assume that if something was seriously wrong, we would sense it. But some people are very, very good at hiding who they really are. Pay attention to the small things that don't quite add up. Trust your instincts, and understand that the person sleeping beside you might be someone you don't know at all." Take a breath. Process what you've heard. These stories are difficult because they're real. If you need to step away, I understand. But if you're still here, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell. Leave a like if these stories are affecting you the way they've affected millions of readers. We're going deeper still. The third confession comes from a man who made a choice in a single moment that has defined the rest of his life. Daniel was 19 years old, a college sophomore with a bright future ahead of him. He had just been accepted to medical school, a dream he had worked toward since childhood. His parents were blue-collar workers who had sacrificed everything to give him opportunities they never had. On a Saturday night in May, Daniel attended a party at a friend's house. It was in a rural area, miles from campus. He drank more than he should have, though he insisted in his post that he didn't feel drunk, just buzzed, relaxed, confident enough to drive home despite the alcohol in his system. The roads were empty at 2 in the morning, dark country highways with no streetlights, just his headlights cutting through the black. The radio played softly. The windows were down, warm night air rushing through the car. Daniel felt good. He was young, successful, heading toward a bright future. The world seemed full of possibility. He never saw the cyclist until impact. The sound was something Daniel wrote he still hears in nightmares. Not just the crunch of metal and composite materials, but something organic, something that sounded like it shouldn't sound. His car lurched and fishtailed as he slammed on the brakes, tires screaming against asphalt. The vehicle skidded to a stop on the shoulder. Daniel's hands locked on the steering wheel, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. For a long time, he just sat there. His mind couldn't process what had happened. Maybe it was a deer, he told himself. Maybe it was a large dog. Maybe it was anything other than what he knew. Deep down, it had to be. He forced himself to get out of the car. His legs barely supported his weight. He walked back along the road, following the trail of scattered debris. Pieces of reflective material, fragments of plastic. And then he saw the bicycle, twisted and mangled, both wheels bent at impossible angles. Next to the bicycle was a person. Daniel approached slowly, each step an eternity. She was a young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, athletic build. She was wearing cycling gear, bright colors that should have been visible, but somehow he hadn't seen her. She lay on the asphalt in an expanding pool of blood, her helmet cracked, her body unnaturally still. Daniel knelt beside her, his medical training kicking in automatically. He checked for a pulse. It was there, weak, thready, but present. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Blood came from her nose and ears, a sign of serious head trauma. Her eyes flickered open for just a moment, unfocused, searching. They landed on his face. She tried to speak, her lips moving, but no sound came out except a wet, gurgling noise. Daniel pulled out his phone. His hands shook so badly he could barely hold it. He stared at the screen, at those 3 numbers that would summon help. 911. All he had to do was press them and call, but he didn't. His mind raced through the consequences. He had been drinking. A breathalyzer test would show his blood alcohol content was above the legal limit. DUI causing injury. Possibly DUI causing death if she didn't survive. Prison time, minimum 5 years, possibly more. His acceptance to medical school revoked. His entire future destroyed. His parents' sacrifices rendered meaningless. Everything gone in an instant. The woman's eyes closed again. Her breathing became more labored. Daniel stood up, still holding his phone, still staring at it. The internal debate raged. Call for help, save her, face the consequences. It was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do. But he thought about his parents. His father, who had worked double shifts for years to pay for his education. His mother, who had taken on cleaning jobs in addition to her regular work. They were so proud of him. He would be the first in their family to become a doctor. He would lift them out of poverty, give them a comfortable retirement, make their sacrifices worthwhile. One mistake, one stupid decision to drive after drinking. Should that erase everything? Should that destroy not just his life, but his parents' dreams? Daniel made his choice. He pocketed his phone. He returned to his car. He checked the damage, a significant dent in the front bumper, a cracked headlight. He took one last look at the woman lying on the road, told himself that help would come soon, that someone else would find her, that she would probably be fine. Then he drove away. He went straight home, parked in his garage, and spent the next 4 hours cleaning his car with manic intensity. He scrubbed away every trace of the accident. Blood, paint from the bicycle, fragments of reflective material. He used bleach and detergent and worked until his hands were raw. As the sun came up, he examined his work. The car still had the dent and broken headlight, but no biological evidence remained. The next morning, he drove 3 towns over to a body shop. He paid cash. He claimed he had hit a deer. The mechanic didn't question it. People hit deer all the time on those rural roads. Daniel waited 3 days before he allowed himself to check the local news. The headline hit him like a physical blow. Local teacher found dead on Route 47. Her name was Emily Richardson. She was 26 years old, an elementary school teacher who was training for a triathlon. She had been found by a morning commuter at approximately 6:30 a.m. The medical examiner estimated she had been lying on that road for approximately 4.5 hours. The article included a quote from the ME. If she had received medical attention within the first hour, she likely would have survived. The injuries, while severe, were treatable. Daniel read that sentence over and over. She would have survived. If he had called for help immediately, Emily Richardson would have lived. His decision to drive away had killed her as surely as the initial impact. The investigation revealed no leads. There were no witnesses on that rural stretch of road at 2 in the morning. No security cameras, no physical evidence left behind after Daniel's thorough cleaning. The case was classified as a hit and run with no suspects. Emily's family pleaded for anyone with information to come forward. Her fiancé appeared on local news, begging the driver to turn themselves in. Daniel stayed silent. He went to medical school as planned. He studied emergency medicine, perhaps as some form of unconscious penance. He became an ER doctor, one of the best in his hospital. He saved lives, hundreds of lives over the years. Patients who came in from car accidents, from trauma, from situations where minutes mattered. He gave them what he didn't give Emily Richardson: immediate, expert care. He married, had children, built a respectable life. He volunteered at free clinics in underserved communities. He mentored young medical students. Colleagues called him dedicated, compassionate, selfless. His patients loved him. His family was proud of him. But every single day, multiple times a day, he thought about Emily Richardson. He had researched her extensively over the years, though he could never explain why, even to himself. He knew she had 2 younger brothers who spoke at her memorial every year. He knew her parents had started a scholarship fund in her name for students pursuing education degrees. He knew her fiancé had never married, had never moved on. Daniel attended the annual memorial bicycle ride held in Emily's honor. He stood in the crowd of cyclists in bright jerseys, people who had never met Emily but rode to honor her memory and advocate for cyclist safety. He listened to her mother speak about the hole Emily's death had left in their lives, about how the unknown driver had not only killed Emily, but wounded everyone who loved her. In his Reddit post, written 23 years after that night, Daniel laid out every detail of what he had done. He wrote that he had come close to confessing to police on multiple occasions. He had drafted confession letters. He had sat in police station parking lots, working up the courage to walk inside. But he always stopped himself. What purpose would it serve now? He asked. Emily wouldn't come back. Her family wouldn't get her back. All that would happen is his own family would be destroyed. His wife would learn she was married to a killer. His children would discover their father was a fraud. The patients he had saved over 2 decades would learn their savior had once chosen to let someone die. He wrote that he had saved approximately 643 lives in his career as an emergency physician. He kept count. He wondered if 643 saved lives balanced out the one he had let die. He knew, logically, that it didn't work that way. Morality wasn't mathematics. But the question haunted him anyway. The comment section exploded with thousands of responses. Some demanded he turn himself in immediately. Others argued that confession after 23 years would serve no purpose except his own desire for absolution. Some commenters were relatives of hit-and-run victims who expressed their rage and pain. Others were medical professionals grappling with the revelation that one of their own could carry such a secret. One comment came from someone claiming to be Emily Richardson's younger brother. He wrote, "My sister died alone on a dark road, bleeding out while the person who hit her went home and cleaned his car. Our family has lived with that knowledge for 23 years. You took away our chance to say goodbye. You took away her chance at life, and you took away our right to justice. I hope your guilt destroys you the way her death destroyed us." Daniel responded, "It does, every single day. But I'm still too much of a coward to give your family what they deserve. And that cowardice is my real crime. The hit and run was a moment of panic. The 23 years of silence is who I actually am. If you're still watching, you're witnessing something raw and real. These aren't just stories. These are confessions that reveal the darkest truths about human nature. Hit that subscribe button now, ring the bell, and leave a like if you're still processing everything you've heard. We're past the halfway point, and the stories only get more disturbing from here. The fourth confession comes from a woman named Jennifer, who discovered a secret that didn't just destroy her understanding of her father, but shattered the foundation of her entire family. Jennifer was 28 years old when she made her discovery. She had returned home for Thanksgiving, bringing along her new boyfriend to meet her family for the first time. Her mother had asked her to retrieve some old photo albums from the attic to show her boyfriend the family history. Jennifer climbed up into the dusty space, navigating between boxes of Christmas decorations and old furniture. The attic was a repository of decades, everything her parents hadn't been able to throw away but didn't use anymore. She found several photo albums quickly enough, but as she turned to leave, something caught her eye. In the far corner, partially hidden behind a rack of old clothing, was a military-style footlocker. It was out of place among the cardboard boxes and plastic storage containers. Heavy metal, painted olive green, with a combination lock securing it. Jennifer had seen her father use combination locks throughout her childhood. He was consistent to the point of being predictable, always using the same 4-digit number. His father's birthday, March 15th, 0315. On a whim, driven by curiosity she couldn't quite explain, she tried the combination. The lock opened. Inside the trunk was a life Jennifer had never known existed. The first thing she saw were driver's licenses, 4 of them, each with her father's photograph, but different names. Thomas Morrison, David Chen, Robert Williams, James Patterson. The addresses on the licenses were in different states: Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania. Beneath the licenses were credit cards matching those names, bank statements showing active accounts with regular deposits and withdrawals. The most recent statements were from just 2 months ago. This wasn't old identity theft or fraud from decades past. These were current, active identities her father was maintaining right now. Then she found the photographs, a whole envelope full of them. Pictures that told a story Jennifer's mind initially refused to accept. Her father, looking younger, with his arm around a woman Jennifer had never seen before. The same woman in multiple photos, clearly taken over many years. And children. 3 children who had her father's distinctive nose, his eyes, his smile. Jennifer sat on the attic floor, surrounded by evidence of her father's double life, and felt her reality tilting. She looked through every photograph with shaking hands. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, baseball games, beach vacations, an entire parallel family documented in candid moments of joy and normalcy. She found more documents, birth certificates for children named Michael, Lisa, and Patrick, listing her father under one of his aliases as the father. Marriage license for him and the woman, Carol Henderson, dated 32 years ago. That was 3 years after he had married Jennifer's mother. The mathematics were staggering. Jennifer was 31 years old. Her siblings were 29 and 26. The children in Ohio, she could see from their birth certificates, were 27, 24, and 21. The families had grown in parallel, neither knowing the other existed. Her father had been living 2 complete lives simultaneously for over 3 decades. Jennifer photographed everything with her phone, her mind operating on autopilot while her emotions churned. She carefully returned everything to the trunk exactly as she had found it, locked it back up, and descended from the attic with the photo albums her mother had requested. Thanksgiving dinner was torture. Jennifer sat across from her father, watching him laugh and tell stories, watching him kiss her mother, watching him play the role of devoted husband and father. Her boyfriend noticed something was wrong, asked quietly if she was okay. She smiled and lied and pushed food around her plate while her mind screamed. After Thanksgiving, Jennifer became a detective. She used the information from the trunk to search online. She found social media profiles for Carol Henderson and her 3 children. Carol's Facebook page was public, filled with photographs spanning years. And there was Jennifer's father, appearing in countless images, at soccer games, at graduations, at wedding celebrations, holiday gatherings, ordinary Tuesday nights. The profile painted a picture of a normal, happy family. Carol posted loving tributes to her husband on their anniversary. The children posted photos with Dad on Father's Day. They were a real family as Jennifer's family, living their lives 2 states away, completely unaware that their husband and father had another wife and 3 other children in Virginia. Jennifer checked her father's work schedule against the timestamps on Carol's social media posts. It all lined up perfectly. His job as a regional sales manager required frequent travel, multiple trips per month that lasted anywhere from 2 to 5 days. When he was supposedly in meetings in Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Chicago, He was actually with his other family. When he was home in Virginia being dad to Jennifer and her siblings, Carol's Facebook showed her husband away on business trips. The logistics were mind-boggling. 2 separate lives, 2 separate identities, 2 families who each believed they had his complete devotion. It must have required meticulous planning, constant lies, and almost superhuman ability to compartmentalize. Jennifer spent weeks deciding what to do. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. Every interaction with her father became an exercise in maintaining a facade, while knowing the truth. She wanted to scream at him, to expose him, to burn down the lie he had built. But she also thought about her mother, about her siblings, about the 3 half-siblings in Ohio she had never met. Whatever she did would destroy all of them. She finally decided to confront her father privately. She asked to meet him for coffee, claimed she wanted advice about her career. They sat in a Starbucks, and Jennifer pulled out her phone. She showed him the photographs she had taken of the documents in the trunk. His face went pale. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then he began to beg, not to deny, not to explain, but to beg. He pleaded with her to understand. He loved both families, he insisted. He had tried to end it so many times over the years, but he couldn't bear to hurt anyone. He was a good father to all his children, a good husband to both women. Everyone was happy. Why destroy that happiness with truth? When Jennifer said she was going to tell her mother, her father's demeanor changed. The pleading stopped. His voice became cold, calculated. He reminded her of things he had helped her cover up over the years. The DUI when she was 22, that he had paid a lawyer to make disappear. The financial aid form she had filled out incorrectly in college. Technically fraud that he had helped her navigate. Some prescription medication she had obtained improperly during a difficult period. He had been protecting her, covering for her mistakes. If she destroyed his life, he would make sure everyone knew about her secrets too. Jennifer felt the threat like a physical blow. She left the coffee shop and drove home in a daze. She was trapped. Telling the truth would destroy her father, her mother, both families, and possibly her own reputation and freedom. Staying silent would make her complicit in his lies. There was no right choice, only degrees of harm. She sought help from a family therapist who specialized in crisis intervention. Together, they developed a plan to reveal the truth in a way that minimized harm, particularly to the younger children in both families. The therapist helped Jennifer understand that her father's threat to expose her past mistakes was a form of manipulation, that her youthful errors didn't compare to his decades of systematic deception. The revelation happened on a Sunday afternoon, 3 months after Jennifer's discovery. With the therapist present, Jennifer told her mother everything. Her mother's reaction was almost catatonic at first. Complete disbelief, then rage, then a collapse into grief so profound that Jennifer called an ambulance, fearing her mother was having a heart attack. Jennifer also contacted Carol in Ohio through Facebook, asking to speak privately about an urgent matter concerning her husband. That conversation was even more devastating. Carol had built her entire adult life around a man who was living a double life. She had no family of her own. Her parents were deceased. She had sacrificed career opportunities to support his traveling job. Learning the truth shattered her completely. The fallout was catastrophic. Both women filed for divorce simultaneously. The children from both families suddenly learning they had half-siblings they had never known about, reacted with confusion, anger, and betrayal. Jennifer's younger sister refused to speak to her for months, blaming her for destroying their family by revealing the truth. One of the boys in Ohio attempted suicide, overwhelmed by the revelation that his entire life had been a lie. Jennifer's father tried desperately to maintain relationships with everyone, traveling between states, making promises, attempting to explain the unexplainable. But both families rejected him. He lost both homes in the divorce settlements. He lost his job when the company discovered he had been using business trips as cover for his double life, a violation of company policy and potential fraud regarding expense reports. In her Reddit post, written 18 months after the revelations, Jennifer described the ongoing aftermath. Her father now lived alone in a small apartment, estranged from most of his children. Jennifer had met her half-siblings, and the relationships were awkward, complicated, built on a foundation of shared trauma rather than shared joy. Her mother was in therapy, struggling to understand how she had lived with a man for 30 years and never suspected he had another complete family. The comments on Jennifer's post reflected the complexity of the situation. Some people praised her courage in revealing the truth. Others argued she had been selfish, that she should have kept the secret and protected everyone's happiness, even if that happiness was built on lies. Some commenters related their own experiences of discovering family secrets, of learning that their parents or grandparents had led double lives. One comment that haunted Jennifer came from a child of divorce who wrote, "Sometimes the truth destroys more than it heals. My parents stayed together for the kids, and we had a miserable childhood. But maybe that was better than the war zone that came after they finally divorced. I don't know. Maybe there are no good answers, only bad choices and worse choices." Jennifer responded, "I think about that every day. Did I do the right thing? I destroyed 8 people's lives by telling the truth, but I couldn't carry that secret. It was poisoning me. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe I chose my own peace of mind over everyone else's happiness. I don't have answers. I just have regrets, regardless of what choice I would have made." We're in the final stretch now. If you've made it this far, you've heard some of the most disturbing confessions ever shared online. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell icon and leave a like to show you survived this journey. 2 more stories remain, each as haunting as the ones you've already heard. The 5th story comes from a nurse named Patricia who heard a deathbed confession that changed how she viewed her work and the people she cared for. Patricia had been a nurse for over a decade, working the night shift in the intensive care unit of a major hospital. Night shifts in ICU are different from day shifts, quieter, darker, staffed by smaller crews. It's when the boundary between life and death feels thinnest, when people often slip away while the world sleeps. On this particular November night, Patricia was caring for an elderly man named Richard Morrison, 87 years old, dying of pancreatic cancer, alone. His chart indicated he had no living relatives, no emergency contacts, no one to sit vigil. He had been in and out of consciousness for days, his body shutting down slowly but inevitably. Around 3 in the morning, Patricia heard his call button. When she entered the room, she was surprised to find Richard more alert than she had seen him in days. His eyes were clear, focused. He asked her to sit down. He said he needed to tell someone something before he died. He could feel it coming, he said. Hours, maybe less. Patricia pulled up a chair and took his frail hand. She had held the hands of many dying people, had heard many final words. Usually people wanted to express love for family, or regret for mistakes, or fear about what came next. She was prepared for something touching, something profound. What Richard told her was none of those things. He confessed to 4 murders, committed over a span of 20 years, from 1968 to 1988. He described each one in detail. The first was his business partner, a man named Arthur Schneider. They had co-founded a pharmaceutical distribution company in the 60s. When Arthur discovered Richard was embezzling funds, Richard poisoned him. He used a substance called potassium chloride, obtained through his pharmaceutical connections, injected into Arthur's insulin. Arthur was diabetic, and his death was ruled a tragic medical accident. The second murder was his wife, Margaret. She had been investigating Arthur's death, asking questions, looking through old financial records. Richard drowned her in their bathtub and staged it to look like she had suffered a seizure while bathing. Margaret did have a seizure disorder, so the death was ruled accidental. The third was Margaret's lover, a man named David Brennan. During the investigation into Margaret's death, police had questioned David extensively. Richard learned about the affair from reading police reports. 6 months after Margaret's death, David was killed in what appeared to be a mugging gone wrong. Richard had hired someone to do it, paying cash, making sure the murder was brutal enough to look like a random attack. The fourth was a blackmailer, a man who had pieced together the truth about at least some of Richard's crimes and tried to extort money. Richard burned down the man's house with him inside. Another accident caused by an electrical short in old wiring. Richard recounted all of this in a calm, matter-of-fact tone. He described his methods, his motivations, his success in evading detection. He gave Patricia specific details: where bodies were buried, where evidence might still exist, names and dates and locations, everything she would need to bring these cases to justice. Then, having unburdened himself, Richard made a request. He asked Patricia not to report what he had told her. He explained that he had no family to shame, but he had a legacy. His name was on buildings, on scholarship funds, on hospital wings. He had donated millions to charity over his life. He wanted to be remembered as a philanthropist and successful businessman, not as a murderer. Patricia sat there, stunned, as Richard's breathing became more labored. He died 40 minutes later, leaving her alone with the weight of his confession. She was the only person in the world who knew the truth about Richard Morrison. In the following weeks, Patricia struggled with what to do. Legally, she had no obligation to report what a patient told her. Patient confidentiality extended even beyond death in most cases. The deathbed confession was privileged information, but morally, she felt she owed something to Richard's victims, to their families who had spent decades without answers. She researched the cases Richard had mentioned. She found newspaper archives describing Arthur Schneider's tragic death from insulin complications, Margaret Morrison's drowning accident, David Brennan's unsolved murder during a robbery, a house fire that killed a man named Thomas Webb in 1988. All the details matched what Richard had told her. She found obituaries for his victims, real people with families who loved them. Arthur Schneider had 3 children who mourned him. Margaret Morrison's sister had spent decades advocating for better seizure disorder awareness. David Brennan's mother had died without ever knowing who killed her son. Thomas Webb's wife had struggled financially after his death, raising 2 young children alone. Patricia made an anonymous call to the police, providing the information Richard had given her. But without physical evidence, and with the primary suspect dead, nothing came of it. The cases remained cold. The families never got their closure. Richard's reputation remained intact. His name stayed on those buildings and scholarships. What haunted Patricia most was Richard's complete lack of remorse. He hadn't confessed to seek forgiveness or to make amends. He had confessed because he needed to say it out loud before he died, to acknowledge what he considered his accomplishments. The murders were problems he had solved efficiently. He was proud of getting away with it. He had lived a full, happy, successful life despite taking 4 others. In her Reddit post, Patricia wrote about how the experience changed her view of her patients. She had always believed everyone deserved compassionate care at the end of life, regardless of what they had done. She still provided that care. It was her job and her ethical obligation. But now she wondered how many other dying patients she had tended carried similar secrets. How many monsters died peacefully, surrounded by caring nurses, having lived full lives without ever facing justice. She described the moral paradox of her position. If Richard had survived, if he had recovered and left the hospital, should she have reported him then? Was the deathbed confession sacred, or was it just another form of manipulation, unburdening himself while ensuring no consequences would follow? The comments on her post sparked intense philosophical debate. Some argued that deathbed confessions should always be kept confidential, that the sacred space between a dying person and their caregiver must be protected. Others insisted that justice for victims outweighed any promise of confidentiality. Medical ethicists weighed in on the nuances of patient privacy versus moral obligations. One comment that stayed with Patricia came from someone who worked in hospice care. They wrote, "I've heard dozens of deathbed confessions over my career. Murders, rapes, child abuse, financial crimes that ruined families. I've learned that some people spend their entire lives successfully hiding who they really are. They die, loved and respected, while their victims live with lifelong trauma or died unavenged. It's not fair. It's not just. But it's the reality of human nature. Monsters rarely look like monsters." Patricia ended her post with questions she still couldn't answer. Do deathbed confessions mean anything if the person confessing has no remorse? Is confession without repentance just another form of pride? Should I have broken confidentiality to give those families closure, even though it would have accomplished nothing legally? I did my job. I provided dignified end-of-life care to my patient. But I wonder if sometimes our professional ethics require us to be complicit in injustice. We're almost at the end. 2 more confessions remain. If you're still here, you're among the few who can face these difficult truths about human nature. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Ring that bell and drop a like to let me know you made it this far. The 6th confession comes from a high school teacher named Marcus, who faced an impossible decision that would haunt him regardless of which choice he made. Marcus had been teaching English for 12 years at a suburban high school. He was the kind of teacher students remembered fondly, the one who stayed late to help with college essays, who sponsored the Creative Writing Club, who genuinely cared about his students' futures. One of his students, a junior named Tyler, had been submitting increasingly dark creative writing assignments throughout the semester. At first, Marcus appreciated the ambition and the technical skill. Tyler was talented. His prose was vivid, his imagery striking, his grasp of narrative structure sophisticated for a 16-year-old. The darkness of the subject matter didn't concern Marcus initially. Plenty of great writers explored darkness. Horror and violence had legitimate places in literature. But over the course of several weeks, Tyler's writing became more specific, more focused, and more disturbing. The stories were no longer generic horror. They were set in their actual school, featuring thinly disguised versions of real teachers and students. The violence was detailed, methodical, showing clear research into tactics used in previous school shootings. The assignment that finally alarmed Marcus was a 20-page story titled The Invisible Boy. It followed a student who felt overlooked, bullied, completely unseen by his peers and teachers. The protagonist detailed his plan to make everyone see him, to force the world to acknowledge his existence in the most horrific way possible. The story included a map of the school layout with specific locations marked. It described the security weaknesses in the building, noting which doors were often left propped open, which hallways had no camera coverage, which teachers propped their classroom doors despite lockdown protocols. It detailed the best times to catch the maximum number of students in confined spaces. It referenced specific firearms and ammunition, discussing their effectiveness in close quarters. Marcus read the assignment 3 times, his hands shaking. This didn't feel like creative exploration anymore. This felt like a blueprint, a plan disguised as fiction. He faced a terrible choice: report it and potentially ruin a student's life over creative writing. Tyler had never been violent. He had no disciplinary record. He was quiet, awkward, isolated, sure, but that described thousands of teenagers. What if Marcus was overreacting? What if this was just a disturbed kid working through difficult emotions through writing? What if destroying Tyler's future over fiction would be the actual catalyst that drove him to violence? But what if it wasn't just fiction? What if Tyler was planning something and Marcus ignored the warning signs? How would Marcus live with himself if Tyler followed through and people died? How would he explain to grieving parents that he had seen this coming and done nothing? Marcus made his decision. He reported the assignment to the principal and school counselor. They took it seriously, immediately contacting Tyler's parents and local police. Tyler was pulled from class and questioned. His home was searched. In Tyler's bedroom, investigators found notebooks filled with violent fantasies, detailed diagrams of the school, lists of students he felt had wronged him. His computer search history included queries about obtaining firearms, about school security vulnerabilities, about body counts in previous mass shootings. Tyler was expelled immediately. He was placed in psychiatric care for evaluation. His parents were investigated for failing to secure firearms in their home, though no charges were ultimately filed. The entire situation exploded across the small community, making local news, dividing parents and students into camps for and against the school's response. Tyler never spoke to Marcus again. Neither did Tyler's parents, who blamed Marcus for destroying their son's future over creative writing. Some other teachers, in private conversations, questioned whether Marcus had overreacted. A few students in the creative writing club stopped attending, afraid their dark stories would be similarly misinterpreted. The aftermath was complicated. Marcus never learned definitively whether Tyler had been planning an actual attack or if the writings were purely fictional exploration. The psychiatric evaluation was sealed. Tyler and his family moved out of state 3 months later. Marcus was left with endless second-guessing. Had he saved lives? Or had he destroyed a troubled kid's future over fiction? The school board commended him for his vigilance, but the commendation felt hollow. Some parents thanked him with tears in their eyes, grateful their children were safe. Others whispered that he had overreacted, that he had violated student trust, that he had ruined a boy's life based on paranoia. Marcus's post on Reddit described the nightmares that followed. In one recurring dream, Tyler attacks the school, and Marcus reads his own name in the list of victims because he stayed silent. In another, Tyler is a harmless, troubled kid whose life Marcus ruined out of unfounded fear. Both nightmares felt equally real, equally possible, equally terrible. The comments on his post reflected deep divisions. Some people shared their own experiences reporting students. A teacher in Colorado wrote about stopping an actual school shooting plot, how the student had been planning to attack during a pep rally, how timely intervention saved dozens of lives. She told Marcus he absolutely did the right thing. But another commenter shared a different story. He had been falsely accused of threatening violence based on creative writing in high school. He described years of therapy to recover from the trauma of being treated like a potential murderer, of losing all his friends, of carrying the stigma into adulthood. He was now 35, still suffering from anxiety and depression, still struggling with trust. He told Marcus he had potentially destroyed Tyler's life over a suspicion. A school shooting survivor wrote, "I wish someone had taken my shooter's warning signs seriously. I would rather live in a world where 100 false alarms are investigated than one where real threats are ignored. You did the right thing, even if it doesn't feel that way." Marcus still teaches, but he wrote that he's different now, more cautious, more distant from his students. The easy trust he once built with teenagers feels dangerous now. He still wonders about Tyler, about what really would have happened if he had stayed silent, about whether he made the right choice. He ended his post with this: "How do we protect everyone when protection for some means potentially destroying others? How do we know when to trust our instincts and when to question them? How do we balance safety with trust, vigilance with compassion? I don't have answers anymore. I just have doubts that keep me up at night, and the knowledge that whatever choice I had made, I would have spent the rest of my life wondering if I was wrong." One final story remains. If you've come this far, you understand that life rarely offers clear moral choices. Make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on. Leave a like if these stories have made you think, made you feel, made you question. And drop a comment sharing which confession affected you most. The seventh and final confession comes from a woman named Amanda, who made a split-second decision that saved her own life, but left her carrying a burden of guilt she couldn't shake. Amanda was 24 years old, working as a junior marketing associate at a downtown firm. It was a Tuesday evening, around 9 p.m., and she was one of the last people in the office building. She had a major presentation scheduled for the next morning, and needed to finish her slides. The parking garage was nearly empty when she finally left. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete as she walked toward her car. The lighting was harsh and fluorescent, casting sharp shadows behind the pillars. It was the kind of space that always felt vaguely threatening late at night, even though Amanda had used it hundreds of times without incident. As she approached her car, she noticed another woman about her age, struggling with several shopping bags near the stairwell entrance. The woman looked up, made eye contact, and smiled. She called out to Amanda, asking if she could help carry the bags to her car. Just one level up. She said her hands were full, and she was worried about dropping everything. Maybe breaking a bottle of wine she had just bought. Amanda's first instinct was to help. She had been raised to be kind, to assist people when they needed it. Her grandmother had always said that helping others was the foundation of being a good person. But something felt wrong. The woman's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her body language seemed tense, rigid. The parking garage was nearly empty, echoing with their voices. Amanda's car was close, just a few spots away. Helping would mean going back toward the stairwell, up to a level that would be even more isolated. Amanda heard her grandmother's voice in her head, but this time it was a different piece of advice, a warning that had been repeated countless times. Predators rely on women's socialization to be helpful and polite. They count on women not wanting to seem rude or paranoid. They use our kindness against us. She remembered reading about parking garage abductions, about attackers who used female accomplices as bait, about women who were isolated, attacked, assaulted, or worse, because they were too polite to trust their instincts. So Amanda said no. She apologized, said she was in a rush, that she was sorry she couldn't help. The woman's smile faltered. For just a moment, something flashed across her face, something that might have been annoyance or calculation. Then the smile returned, and she said she understood. Amanda got into her car quickly, locked the doors, and drove away. As she exited the garage, she saw the woman in her rearview mirror, still standing there, watching her leave. The shopping bags were on the ground now, and the woman was on her phone. Amanda felt terrible the entire drive home. What if the woman genuinely needed help? What if Amanda had refused basic human kindness because of paranoid fear? What if she was becoming the kind of person who saw danger everywhere, who let fear turn her cold and suspicious? She considered turning around, but she didn't. 2 days later, Amanda saw a news report that made her blood run cold. A young woman had been attacked in that same parking garage on that same night. At approximately the same time, Amanda had been there. The report described how the attacker had used a female accomplice as bait, asking for help with shopping bags. When the victim followed the accomplice into the stairwell, a male attacker was waiting. The victim was sexually assaulted, robbed, and badly beaten. She survived, but was hospitalized with serious injuries. Police released security camera footage asking for help identifying the suspects. Amanda recognized the woman immediately. Same build, same clothing, same general appearance as the person who had asked for her help. Amanda had been right to refuse. Her instincts had saved her from a horrific attack, but instead of feeling relieved or vindicated, she felt crushing, suffocating guilt. She had seen the setup. She had felt something was wrong, and she had driven away without warning anyone, without calling security. without doing anything to prevent what happened to the next woman who came through that garage. If she had called security after her encounter, if she had reported the suspicious behavior, maybe the attack could have been prevented. Maybe that other woman, whose name she later learned was Sarah Mitchell, would have been spared her trauma. Amanda eventually went to the police. She identified the female suspect from the footage, which helped lead to arrests of both attackers within a week. The male attacker had a history of violent sexual offenses. The female accomplice was his girlfriend, who had helped him target multiple women over the past year using the same tactic. Amanda visited Sarah in the hospital after the arrests. Sarah was kind to her, thanked her for helping catch her attackers, told her that her identification had been crucial to the case. But Amanda felt the kindness made it worse somehow. This generous person, who had been targeted precisely because she would be kind, because she would help someone who seemed to need it, was now thanking Amanda for doing the bare minimum after the fact. In her Reddit post, Amanda wrote about the devastating weight of that realization. She had saved herself, which was valid and right. But she hadn't thought about anyone else. In the moment of her escape, calling security hadn't even occurred to her. She had just wanted to get away, to get home, to be safe. And in that very human, very understandable reaction, she had left the door open for the next victim. The comments on her post tried to reassure her. They told her she had no obligation to put herself in danger, that she couldn't have known what would happen next, that the attackers were responsible, not her, that survival is not selfish, that she had done nothing wrong. But some comments were harsher. They asked why she didn't at least call security from her car once she was safe, why she didn't shout a warning to anyone else in the garage, why her first instinct was pure self-preservation without any thought for the next potential victim, why she didn't do more. Amanda responded honestly to many of these comments. She wrote that she had asked herself those same questions every single day since. She had no good answer except fear and shock and the overwhelming relief of having escaped. In that moment, additional action simply hadn't occurred to her. Her brain had been in pure survival mode. Get away, get safe, get home. She described how the experience had changed her. She was more vigilant now, more likely to report suspicious behavior, even if it turned out to be nothing. She volunteered at a women's shelter, trying to give back, to help in ways she didn't that night. But she knew it didn't erase anything. Sarah still carried her trauma. Amanda still carried her guilt. The comment that resonated most with Amanda came from a trauma therapist who wrote, "You're not responsible for evil people doing evil things, but we are all part of a society, part of a community. We have responsibilities to each other, even to strangers. You chose safety, which is absolutely valid and understandable. You also chose not to warn others, which had consequences. Both things can be true. You can have made the right choice for yourself while wishing you had done more. That's the complexity of being human." Amanda ended her confession by saying, "I saved myself that night, and I would probably make the same choice again if faced with the same situation. I don't know if I could have done anything differently in that moment of fear, but I wish I had been brave enough, clear-headed enough to save someone else too. I wish I had been the person I thought I was before. That night showed me who I really am when I'm afraid, and I have to live with knowing that gap between who I want to be and who I actually am. We've reached the end of this journey through some of the most disturbing confessions ever shared online. If you've watched until now, thank you for taking this difficult path with me. These stories remind us that life rarely offers clear moral choices. Most decisions exist in shades of gray, and we all carry the weight of choices made in moments when we didn't have the luxury of time, clarity, or perfect information. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Which of these confessions affected you most? Have you ever carried a secret that changed how you see yourself? Have you ever made a choice in a moment of crisis that you still question? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. We'll continue exploring these complex, haunting stories that reveal uncomfortable truths about human nature. And if this video made you think, made you feel, made you question anything about morality, guilt, or the choices we make, leave a like to support this channel. These are the confessions that still haunt readers years after they were posted. These are the secrets people carry silently, the choices that define us, the truths that remind us everyone we meet is fighting battles we know nothing about, making impossible decisions we can't judge until we've stood in their shoes. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. Process what you've heard. And remember that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is sit with uncomfortable truths rather than looking away, to acknowledge the complexity of human nature rather than pretending the world is simple. Subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you in the next deep dive into the darkness we all carry.